Welcome to On the Frontline, the Military Rec Show, hosted by John Prue, where we spotlight the people, programs, and purpose behind military recreation around the world. In this episode, we're diving into the often overlooked world of military recreation within the Defense Logistics Agency. Our guest, Ann Connor, shares an incredible journey across the Army, Navy, and overseas deployments, from Guam to Italy to Djibouti, and how those experiences led her to lead recreation efforts at DLA headquarters. We'll explore how DLA supports thousands of personnel, the unique challenges of non-traditional military installations, and what the future holds for MWR programs. This is On the Frontline, powered by the DPRS Media Network. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome. It is St. Patrick's Day. It is 13:30 Tuesday, 17 March 2026, and you are on the front line. My name is John Prue. As a host of this weekly podcast focused on armed forces or military recreation, we talk to professionals in the industry who are in some way making a difference in the quality of life for our military families and all those that support those types of operations. Now, out there, you might be an MWR professional who directly supports quality of life for our military and families each and every day. Maybe you are or have been in the military yourself and a user of MWR services at some point, and we thank you for your service. Perhaps you're a business or an organization which directly supports or wants to support armed forces recreation professionals around the globe. Or maybe you're a public parks and recreation professional just curious about what this thing called military recreation or MWR is all about. Um, or maybe you just don't fit into any of those categories and you just happen to tune in. Either way, welcome. Welcome to On the Front Line, the Military Rec Show. All right, we have a great show today, no doubt. The St. Patty's special, I'll call it. Um, but we are a part of an amazing media company called Daily Parks and Rec Show, or DPRS. DPRS Media exists to honor the parks and recreation community, reflecting on the stories, highlighting the careers, celebrating the real pros out there who are doing the essential work in our communities. This includes our military communities. I want to give a special shout out to Jovi. She's our producer today, doing good stuff with transitions and trying to make us look good. And as I've always said, trying to make me look good is a challenge. So, in advance, Jovi, thank you for what you're doing. And before we get rolling today, I also want to thank the founder of DPRS Media, Craig LeBlanc, and the many podcast shows and many of them he hosts himself that are impacting the parks and recreation industry. I really want to thank him for allowing us to have this weekly podcast focused solely on military recreation and the great work that is being done out there. Okay, got to pay the bills too. Today's show sponsor is Outdoor Link. I would like to give a special shout out to Outdoor Link um, for their support. They've been one of the earliest supporters of DPRS Media. If you want to turn on your entire city on and off with the swipe of a finger on an app, this is what Outdoor Link does. Outdoor Link builds smart cities connecting your park lights, splash pads, fountains, scoreboards, bathroom door locks, anything powered by electricity into a simple app on your phone, tablet, or desktop that can be controlled from any location 24/7, 365 days a year. If you want to learn more about Outdoor Link, tune in to the Smart Park Future Show on the second and fourth Mondays at 1:30 Eastern on the DPRS network. We're going to see a spot on Outdoor Link here shortly, and we're also going to see one on JDP Services Management Consulting, near and dear to my heart on that. So, Jovi, why don't you play those spots, and we'll be right back.
JDP Services Management Consulting, supporting parks and recreation and the essential service they provide. Communities benefit greatly from having dedicated advocates who champion the value of play in open spaces. Such advocacy ensures that recreational areas are prioritized and managed in ways that enhance the overall quality of life for everyone. We are dedicated to fortifying public park and recreation agencies and other related organizations by taking a practical, engaged approach to consulting and training, addressing immediate needs while equipping clients with lasting insight and tools to strengthen their organizations for long-term success. JDP Services, Management Consulting, meeting needs and exceeding expectations.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Update digital displays in real time. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. And even run community or sponsorship campaigns on digital screens. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
All right, we are back. And as we typically do on this show, we like to highlight some of the really cool things that are actually happening out there at the bases and locations around the globe. Um, and so we're going to talk about a couple things, but again, most of this stuff shows up on the Armed Forces Recreation Network, which is part of NRPA. And it shows up on the social media platforms, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn. We're going to talk about that kind of on the back end. But if you're not a part of it, I would encourage you to do it. It is really kind of refreshing. Every day on my feed, I see these really cool programs or pieces of equipment or new initiatives that are happening at various bases across all the services. Um, and it's just really good stuff. So, Jovi, why don't you bring up the screen? We're going to talk about a couple things. First of all, we're going to talk about this, and this kind of is a teaser for our guest here. But Defense Logistics Agency, FMWR in Columbus, just put out a great video, kind of recapping what they do and how they support their community. And we're going to talk about DLA because um, I I didn't know it existed until probably 5 years ago, and I've been around a while. And part of the reason we have our guest on today, but very cool stuff. They're doing really good stuff out there. They have a golf course, they have rec lodging, they have obviously fitness, sports, ITT. They're doing everything to support their community at the um, DLA in Columbus. So good stuff. And again, a little bit of a teaser for our guest here today. And then this caught my attention. This is in Pendleton, and obviously we're looking at human performance centers and wellness centers. We're trying to do things a little differently in the world of taking care of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, marine folks across the board. But they have nap pods, and I had not quite seen this. I will say the closest thing I've seen is in an airport. I was traveling in Japan. I saw something kind of, sort of, that you could crawl into that looked this way. But they actually have them out at Camp Pendleton, and the MWR team or MCCS team posted this on the site just a week or two ago. So I wanted to highlight that as something pretty cool, because we've all had our service members, especially young service members, crashed in on one of our couches in a rec center. Right? This seems like maybe a more appropriate place if they need to get a quick nap in from that standpoint. So, anyways, just sharing. And then this Warrior rig at Fort Bragg, saw this come across, and obviously they're using this as they try to go down that track of human performance and fitness, and thought it was pretty cool. So we have a little bit of an angle on equipment here this week as we look at things. But yeah, this was from Fort Bragg. And then this, and maybe I'm out of it, but I've never really seen these bikes in the water doing this. But this came from Fort McCoy, the FMWR team up there, which always seems to be doing some really cool stuff. I see a lot of their posts come in. But Liquid Gears, where spin meets splash. So cool picture and caught my attention. I actually kind of reposted this myself, asking if anybody else is doing these classes out there as well. But I thought this was neat. I see some fitness equipment come back from some of our ships on the forward deployed stuff, and comes back pretty rusty and crazy. But again, salt water, so I'm not quite sure if these were meant to be in the water, but it seems to be working and keeping people fit, I guess. So we'll go from there. Um, okay, and as I mentioned, social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think we have close to 1,000 members. We get about 150 to 150 posts or repost a month on the Facebook site. So there's constantly programs being put up there. Our LinkedIn's a little bit smaller. I think we only have about 250 people on that, but it's getting more active. So if you want to do that, look at the QR codes. And then the one on the left is really just to sign up for monthly meetings. Next Wednesday, or I'm sorry, last Wednesday was the AFRN monthly meeting, and they'll have another one coming up in April. And they typically not only do service updates, but um, also do some training or take key topical areas and talk about that. So really good stuff happening from the team, the leadership team with the Armed Forces Recreation Network. So if you're not a part of these or want to be a part of these, please check it out. Or just reach back if you need that. If you couldn't snap a shot with the QR code, we'll take care of you. All right, Jovi, you can take that off. All right, and let's bring up our guest today. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Is Ann Connor. I'm so glad to have you here today. Ann is the Business and Recreation Chief for Defense Logistics Agency headquarters at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And as I was saying, and I've joked with Ann about this over the last few years, we see each other maybe at NRPA or talk offline, but I did not know that DLA, or I didn't consciously know that DLA actually had MWR program for their agencies and locations. I just didn't have a clue. Maybe I just thought it folded in with the Army because there's a little bit of a connection. I'm sure you'll tell us about that. Or people I met at NRPA and they just kind of referenced, or maybe they said DLA and I just thought it was some funky Army operation. I didn't even know what the acronym was at a part of my career maybe. So I I can't wait to talk about what you guys do, and obviously your story, because you've been different locations, you've been on military bases, you're doing a lot of things. So let's start with that. And first, welcome to officially on the front line. But tell us about your journey and how you got to this headquarter position for DLA.
Well, it's definitely been a ride, and a very adventurous one, and one I feel very lucky to have found. I started basically kind of all started when I was in college. I went to the University of New Hampshire and was majoring in recreation management. And someone a couple of years ahead of me did their internship with the Navy, and I think they went out to Whidbey Island, and they came back and told us about it, and they worked on this big concert and how fun it was, and how meaningful the mission was. And so that really spoke to me. I had spent my summers in college working at a resort in upstate or way up north in New Hampshire. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I'm like, I'm just kind of trying to make people happy on vacation, and this isn't exactly what I want to do forever. And so the military mission spoke to me. And then when I found out that there was an opportunity to go abroad with the Navy's internship program, I was all in. And so I applied for that and was picked up and was placed in Guam. So I went out to Guam for 3 months and did my internship. And I said, yep, this is exactly what I want to do. And
So let me stop you there.
yeah,
So there was a period of time in your career where you said, "Go Navy, beat Army," correct?
at the very beginning, before I knew better, yes.
Okay, we
Yeah.
can debate that. We can debate that, but okay,
I have love
good
for
enough.
both services. Yes, the Navy was my first introduction to the military and my first introduction to MWR. And spending time out in Guam right after, at the end of my college career was pretty amazing. But from there wasn't like a great opportunity to go from being an intern to being like a real employee that had insurance, and so I moved to New York City after I graduated and did some things in New York City, all the while always looking on USA Jobs for an opportunity. And I came
Were
across the
were you still in the recreation field when you doing in New York, or totally outside of that?
totally outside of it. I moved to New York City on a whim. I came back from Guam and didn't really have anything going on. And a family friend that lived in New York said, "Why don't you move to New York City and I'll help you get a job at the restaurant on the corner. For now, you can be a waitress, and then you can figure out something from there, and you can live with me." And that very next day, my dad drove me to the bus station in Binghamton, New York, and I moved to New York City.
There you go.
Um, Started out as a waitress, and then I was working for a communications consulting firm, kind of doing logistics for them, administrative work. And then I came across the Army's management trainee program on USA Jobs. And it's not a program that exists anymore, but it's something that did for a number of years. And a lot of people got their start through that program.
Yeah, and if I remember right, it was a really cool program because you came in, it kind of guaranteed you a job. You started like at a 7 and you eventually would get to a 9, and was it a potentially an 11?
Well,
As
we actually
if you progressed?
we did it on the NAF scale. So you came in as a 3 and you did
Okay.
your training as as an NF3, and then you were essentially guaranteed an NF4 placement
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. 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 And that dates me. I'm going back to the pre pay band days, UA, which mimicked the GS, but again, I'm dating myself, so I digress.
Yeah, and so I got picked up for that job for that program, and they placed me at Fort Knox, Kentucky, which to this day I still think is one of the biggest blessings in my life to go work at Fort Knox and to work for that chain of command was just something that I think really shaped me as an MWR professional and really shaped my career. So I will always be
Yeah,
grateful to Fort
yeah.
Knox.
Fort Knox is awesome. It really was the epicenter. There's so many good people that have come out of that program, and yeah, we were chatting about it when we had JJ Love and Joe Kavanaugh on a few weeks ago. It it turned out a lot of good people, and you're one of them. So
Well,
awesome.
fun fact was Ryan Noble and I both started our careers at Fort Knox together. And now he
Yeah,
is the MWR director, as you know, at Fort Carson. And I know he was on your show recently as well.
yeah, yeah. Lots of good people. So what was next?
Then I just really wanted to go overseas, and that was really kind of my mission, my personal mission for working for MWR was to get overseas, and that happened. I got picked up for a job in Vicenza, Italy, and went over there as a fitness center manager. They were in the process of building a whole new installation. So they took an old NATO base, leveled it, and rebuilt all the buildings to include a 60,000 square foot fitness center. So I got to represent MWR as the end user through that process, which was incredible. I got to
So
pick out all the
you had some say in how this thing was developed, and wow,
yeah.
that's
I mean,
that's
of
great.
course I came in, these projects get
Yeah,
planned years and years ahead, but they were still building the building when I was there. So I got to say, oh, well, let's change the counter configuration because that doesn't really work for, functioning for how we want it to be, or can we move this door over here? So I got to make some functional changes, which was really neat. And I got
yep,
to make some decisions that I felt like I, would never be in a position to make. But it really gives you a lot of ownership of a facility like that. And you got to pick out all the equipment, hire the staff, and then run it. And it was an incredible experience.
yeah. So how much wine did you bring back from Italy? Because my fellow Navy MWR folks that have been over there forever, I'm like, come on, help me out here. You're allotted to take a heck of a lot of wine back, I think. So just
I
joking.
Well, I did bring about 250 bottles back. All is gone. And actually, that's a pretty small amount compared to a lot of other people. So,
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I digress again. You had
well,
me
that
at
was
wine. You had me at wine or Italy.
drinking wine in Italy is its own recreational sport. So we all embraced it and enjoyed it. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was next for you at this point? This has been quite the adventure.
Yeah, it was really hard to decide to leave Italy, but I just kind of felt like it was time to go, take the next step in my career or to get a different experience. And so I went to Fort Carson as the special event coordinator and took care of all the installation wide events, whether it be concerts or 4th of July's or tree lightings, things of that nature.
Yeah, awesome. Another awesome area too. That is just north of Denver, right? Colorado Springs area,
We're actually south of Denver.
south of Denver. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, beautiful area out there.
I
Wow.
will say anyone who likes to ski, that's the place to live. If you live in Denver, you'll never get a ski because the traffic's so bad. But if you live in Colorado Springs, you can drive up the back way to the mountains and no problem.
Okay, you're a travel consultant too. I love it.
So from there, I mean, that was a great 3 years of my life. And then I actually jumped back to the Navy. There was the stringer opportunity to go live in Bahrain. And um, with that stringer position, I knew I would get to do something I've always wanted to do, which was work in a deployed setting. And that was in Djibouti, Africa. So a little different than, being in Iraq or Afghanistan, but still a similar setting where what you're providing to those service members is very important.
Okay, so couple things going on. explain to our audience what a stringer is for those that may not know. So first do that.
So the stringer position, they created this and they housed the stringers for our situation, house them in Bahrain with the idea that the people in these positions could be sent out to different installations to help fill critical positions, with one of those being Djibouti, Africa. So you'd go
Okay.
down there, act as one of the 3 MWR positions that they had. You'd go for 6 months, come back to Bahrain, potentially do some other stuff, maybe go to Romania. In my case, I also went to Sigonella, Sicily for several months. So very exciting if you like to travel because you're always being sent somewhere.
Yeah.
But definitely, a little stability of your life kind of goes away.
Kind of like a stable of professionals that can support the region over there from that standpoint. And then it was Isa Air Base another location potentially that you could have gotten pushed to help them out?
So when I was back in Bahrain and not out on another job, I was primarily working out of Isa.
Isa,
So
yeah.
it's a
I got
it's a very austere location,
yeah.
but MWR provides a lot of really great facilities and programs, and so that also was a really fun experience to be a part of.
Yeah. I and again, wishing the best for everybody out in Bahrain, and hoping things get back to normal in the near future for them. But very cool base. I love the little complex with the Navy Exchange and the MWR and the courtyard for programming. I got a chance to go there once on a Navy entertainment tour, and just thought the layout was so cool. And then I'm kind of a food and beverage nerd, so I started talking to some of the folks that were running the food court and operations in there, and they were starting to tell me the numbers and sales that they were doing there. I'm like, oh boy, this is kind of home base. Everybody comes there. It was almost like the college campus where everybody heads to that location. Anyways, I digress again, but very cool base and layout on what they have in Bahrain. So my last question before we get off this topic is shots. How many shots did you need to get to work in Djibouti? Because I heard that's quite a ordeal.
Well, definitely. So it's not as many as you think, and I could be not remembering correctly, but you got to get your typhoid, you have to get your tetanus update, and you have to get yellow fever, which sometimes can be difficult to get because it's not always readily available. And then you do have to take your malaria pills on a daily basis, which can have very interesting side effects in terms of very vivid dreams. And so
Wow. Wow.
it's a bit of a
Yeah,
process.
that is another reason we have in those position descriptions other duties as assigned. Take your daily pills.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so Stringer out in Bahrain. What's next? This has really been an adventure. You're getting lots of experiences along the way.
Yeah. And one of the experiences was to go to, I was assigned to go to Sigonella, Sicily for 4 months to backfill a position.
Mm,
While I was there, they'd opened that position. I applied for it, and then I moved there permanently and was there for 2 years with the Navy out in
yeah.
Sigonella.
What was the position? Fall
That
into
was the
business?
business activities
Oh,
manager position. So I had bowling, bingo, arts and
nice.
crafts, or excuse me, not arts and crafts, auto skills,
Okay.
movie theater, the
Some of
bar. So
the revenue generators. Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Nice. Wow. So I'm, and again, you're not even done with your journey. I'm the oddball that, did an internship, thought I was going to be there for 16 weeks, and I ended up staying at Great Lakes for 34 years. I am totally different. Everybody else kind of bounces around a little bit. but you really have some great chunks of experiences and different levels. Uh, I can understand why you have the position you do today because you've really been given a great opportunity to learn along the way and look at challenges and understand, even in a forward deployed situation, kind of what life is like. So that's awesome. So what was next for you?
Then it was time to go back home to the Army. Um, there is a great opportunity to become a division chief with the Army, and that was at Fort Polk, Louisiana. So I applied for that job and got it. And it was kind of interesting because I was in Sicily during COVID, and so I had to make that transition move during COVID. So there's a few extra
Right.
elements added. And then I went down to Fort Polk, back to the Army, and had 2 really formative years with them. And it was hard, and we had a lot going on. But I really feel like those 2 years gave me more experience than I could have ever asked for.
Yeah, being a division chief, and having to probably work a little closer with military leadership and things like that, that's a whole nother world as well that is, takes a while to navigate. Um, I know it was for me. And then, you got the military leadership that rotates in some cases 2 years, maybe 3 years. So you're kind of always getting a new boss, so to speak.
Yeah,
So that becomes a challenge. So interesting. So you stayed 2 years at Fort Polk. Okay.
yeah. Then
And then,
I moved to DC to be with my significant other, and um, actually took a couple months off, took some leave without pay because my father wasn't well, and so I
mm,
got to be with him in his final days, which was really special. And when it was
yeah,
time to go back to work, I started to look for jobs, and lo and behold, DLA was hiring. And just like you, John, I did not really know what DLA MWR was. I had to make a lot of phone calls to kind of figure it out, and even then, I still was a little unsure. But I applied, and it all worked out.
that is, yeah, that is an awesome journey. It really is because, again, you had opportunities and chunks of experiences across different services. So it's the perfect training ground, and it kind of happened organically for you through your experiences. That's interesting. So we're going to talk about DLA and kind of size and scope because I still, although I've been fascinated once I found out it even exists, I don't even know that I know all the ins and outs, but I'm sure you're going to tell us about it. But we're going to take a quick break and we'll talk about DLA FMWR operations when we get back.
They say it's just rec. Just rec, where kids learn to try again. Just rec, where confidence begins. Where teamwork, effort, and fun matter more than trophies. It's not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not just rec. It's where kids learn to love the game and themselves. It's just rec until they learn teamwork for life. It's just rec, but it's everything to them. It's more than rec. It's a movement. It's just rec until you realize it's shaping the next generation. Together, we're not just running programs, we're building a culture of confidence, connection, and community. Join us.
Before the game, before the lights, before the pressure, there's a moment most people never see. Welcome to The Athlete's Commute, a podcast distributed by DPRS Media Network, co-produced by Her Sports, and hosted by Jordan Ziff. Each episode, Jordan gets behind the wheel, driving athletes to practice, to training, to game day, while getting to know who they really are beyond the jersey. The mindset, the grind, the sacrifices, the moments no one talks about. No scripts, no filters, just real conversations in real motion. Because every athlete has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. This is the Athletes Commute. Buckle up.
All right, we are back with Ann Connor. So, Ann, just covered your journey. Tell us a little bit about Defense Logistics Agency, kind of what your mission is overall, and then kind of the origin. I guess what you discovered when you took the job. How did they have their own FMWR program at each one of the sites? So, kind of walk us through there, because I'm sure some of our audience is curious as well.
Yeah, thank you for asking. That's definitely a message we'd love to get out to educate people on who we are and what we do. But DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, we are a fourth estate agency. So we are within the Department of War. There are organizations that provide central support, acquisitions, administrative functions, and they are distinct from the military branches and other combatant commands. So essentially, we kind of function as the Department of War's back office by handling logistics, logistical, technical, and health services. So some other examples would be Defense Health Agency, DHA, or Defense Information Systems Agency, also known as DISA. So those are some other fourth estate agencies. But DLA was born in 1961, and the overall mission of DLA is to support the nation by delivering readiness to the warfighter through proactive global logistics. So we manage the global defense supply chain for military services, the combatant commands, federal, state, local agencies, different partners, as well as allied nations. So what does that mean? That means that we source and provide nearly all consumable items for military needs that the military needs to operate. So that could be food, fuel, energy, uniforms, medical supplies, ammunition, construction materials, as well as weapons, repair parts, vehicles. Another function we do is, you probably heard of this, but we dispose of all of our excess or unusable equipment. So DERMO or turn-in. So essentially what we do is DLA, we purchase, store, disperse, and dispose of equipment and supplies for the military branches. That's kind of what DLA does as a whole. And again, that was born in 1961. We have about 26,000 employees, and that stretches over 48 states. We're in 26 different countries. And so most of our DLA operations, they actually exist on a military installation. So the Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines, they'll have a couple buildings, a compound, whatever it is, the spaces.
Almost like a tenant command on a military base. Okay.
So
Gotcha.
those DLA employees that work on those installations, they'll utilize the MWR services provided by that host installation. But we do have 4 standalone installations across the United States that they have determined needs to have their own MWR programs because they're not co-located with another branch of service, and they don't have access to the recreational programs that they would normally. So in 1962, so just a year after DLA was founded, they decided that these installations, that this organization needed to have an MWR service. So we're able to exist because we're sort of part of the Army. We have an MOA with the Army to operate, and we utilize all of their systems, so accounting systems, payroll, all of those things, and we actually follow all of their regulations and instructions as well. But
Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. Makes sense.
yeah, and so we have MWR in on DLA installations in what we call Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, which is actually located in New Cumberland, right across the river from Harrisburg. We have Richmond,
I,
Virginia.
uh, by the way, the one in Pennsylvania, I can't even pronounce it, but they are really good about posting stuff that they're doing on our social media network. So it's a big plug for them.
They do. Dana Spalding, the MWR director, she actually used to be
Yeah, I
an
know
Army
Dana.
employee as well, and she is in the Navy. So she's still in the reserve. So she's kind of all over.
Go Navy, beat
Yeah,
Army.
she's a Navy chief. So
Awesome.
we have Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, and then we have Richmond, Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, Battle Creek, Michigan, San Joaquin, California, which is in Tracy, California. And then our headquarters is located on Fort Belvoir in Virginia.
Where you're located, headquarters.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. I just posted a job too. It was I think it was a sports director or sports position, the one in Tracy, California. I
Yeah.
remember
So
seeing
our
it. Yeah, I remember sharing that job because I've got quite a few folks in my network who are in academia and they're promoting their sports management majors, and I'm always saying there are sports positions in the federal government. Please promote our our jobs. It's not
yes.
you're not all going to work for the New York Yankees. Um, so tell all those students, and there's lots of them in that major. We have jobs too. Send them our way. So, anyways, I jokingly reposted that for my academia friends.
Great. Well, good. Thank you. Promote us as much as you can. Yeah.
Awesome. So those locations. So we showed a little teaser of Columbus, but are pretty much all of these locations have the full gamut of typical MWR services.
So no, each site is a little bit different in terms of size and what they have to offer, but we do offer sports and fitness at every location. We offer ITR or leisure travel, some component of outdoor rec, and a lot of them. We also have CDCs, so child development centers, family programming.
Okay.
But from there, some of them will offer a little bit more on top of that, whether it's rec lodging, the golf course, food and beverage, auto skills, our clubs for event rentals and catering. So it just depends site by site.
Yeah, Columbus seemed to have the full gamut. I'm like, I want to go back in another life and work for Columbus, DLA, FMWR. Yeah, looked awesome. And great town too. By the way, NRPA is going to be doing their conference, I think, in 28 in Columbus, Ohio. Believe it or not. So,
Well, that's
maybe
good. I didn't know that. That's going to be easy for them to attend.
Maybe we need to have an AFRN PTI on site while we're there. So I'm planting a seed.
Let's do it.
I may not be alive then, but I'm planting a seed.
We'll showcase what we got. We'd love for people to come and see.
Yeah, and in terms of you're basically supporting civilians for the most part. You don't have a whole lot of active duty military that are attached to these sites. I'm trying to get a handle on the personnel side.
So it's a pretty small percentage, but we do have active duty, and we'll have them from all of the services. So we'll see Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Sometimes they're coming over from like the reserve unit being activated, or they're just coming right over from the active force. So that's a small percentage, but we do mostly service civilians, but a large percentage of our workforce are retirees or veterans.
Yeah, yeah, I would imagine. So, um, and you don't need to get into specific numbers, but I'm kind of thinking. I mean, how much controls do you get APF or that to support these? Is it similar situation, Cat A, Cat B, Cat Cs, and you get a little bit of money to support the sports and fitness, the typical Cat A. I, uh, what kind of controls do you get, and who actually gives you the money? Does it come within DLA, or does it actually come from Army, FMWR, or MCOM?
So that's a great question. So we're set up the exact same way with category A, B, and C, and using the same authorizations for what is considered an APF or UFUM reimbursable expense. So we follow those same rules. And our funding will come from Congress to DLA, and then DLA dishes it out through the UFUM process down to MWR. So we're not taking a cut from Army's operating budget. We have our own, and so far we've been very lucky to be funded pretty close to 100%. And so we've been able to we haven't had to look at closing services or altering operations like some of the other branches have had to do in the recent years.
Yeah, it's a crazy year in general. We'll see how things play out. I know in talking to some colleagues across the services, so far so good, but everybody's kind of like, okay, what's the rest of the year going to bring from that standpoint? And I know our colleagues in Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, are happy. They finally got funded last night, I believe. So hopefully they'll be back to work and doing good stuff. So what are your biggest challenges? Right now in terms of operations or just trying to conquer the next thing? What keeps you up at night?
So I think some of our challenges as an enterprise as a whole is, people don't really know who we are or what we do or that we exist. And so sometimes attracting outside talent for our open positions can be a little challenging at times. We have really upped our partnership with the Army, and we take advantage of the opportunities to explain who we are and educate other program managers across the Army that we're a great organization and they can seamlessly move over to DLA because we follow the same regulations. But I think that's one of our challenges. Also being a fourth estate agency, our agency utilizes the defense-wide working capital fund. And they use those dollars for like SRM, so sustainment, restoration, modernization when it comes to our facilities. And so sometimes that kind of adds a second layer into getting, support for certain maybe equipment replacement or repairs.
Yeah,
So we have to navigate that a lot. But,
yeah,
we're being a smaller agency, we have less revenue at the end of the year to reinvest back into our programs. And for a number of years, they didn't really have any because of COVID and, some other factors. So we've been focusing on building that pot of money back up to make sure that we can make those capital purchases. And we're trying to put some money away so we can start having a construction fund to support our Cat B and Cat C facilities, and whether that's with renovations or new builds. So we're really focusing now on reinvestment into our programs.
yeah.
But
That's a tough one. What's your big revenue generator? Um,
uh, it's actually ITR. We make a lot of money in ITR. Our shops are small, but they reach out really far to a lot of veterans. And they are just so wonderful with their customer service that if somebody gets directed to their office one time, they just keep coming back. So we make a lot of money there, and then we have food and beverage. We have a lot of them are contracted out, so the risk is pretty low for us, but we're bringing in money as well.
Do you actually have licensed travel agents, or are you taking advantage of um, American Forces Travel, the broader contract?
We take advantage of those opportunities through the military ticket program as well, and then we've put a lot of effort into expanding our local tickets that we offer, whether it's for professional sporting events or Broadway that comes to town, those sort of things.
Ohio State football in Columbus, do they have access to those tickets?
We don't have access to that, but they do the state fair there, and they actually have a ton of Broadway. I am marrying a Ohio State fan, someone who went to Ohio State, so I have had to convert to an Ohio State
Yeah,
supporter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. At least, well, it's a good team. It's a good team. They buy their championships, but that's college football today. So again, that's a
Yeah,
podcast
I
for
mean, because we're the
another
only
day.
ones, right?
So you've thank you for your explanation. I think I certainly have a better understanding of what you're all about and the importance of that. I have one more question on DLA before we move off to something else. What is your patronage um, in terms of that? Because again, you don't have people living like on a military base where you have barracks and everything. It's very much commuter base, and there's plenty of military bases that are commuters where they come in, they work, they get out, and nobody sees anybody on the weekends or nights. What is your patronage? I mean, are you well used? Are you hitting goals? Do you have goals? How does that all work? Or is it really dependent on each site?
It depends on each site. So some sites, they operate a very different schedule than others. And so we have to really be flexible in how we accommodate to people's free time. Um, yeah, we can't have an event at 5:30 at night because no one will be there, at most of our installations. So we have to make sure that we're planning our activities and our programs around the time that people get out of work, they can participate, and they can get home, especially because some of our places really have to contend with a lot of traffic. And so we have to take that into consideration as to, the traffic patterns for commuting at the end of the day, because if you end an event at a certain time, well, nobody's going to come because they don't want to leave and have to drive home through that rush hour traffic. So a few different elements that come into play. I will say we have seen a significant increase in our participation since we've all come back to work. So it was slow at first after COVID. As a fourth estate agency, we were still authorized some telework, and then that got smaller and smaller and smaller as we went on, and now we're basically fully back to work, and our patron numbers have just shot through the roof.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And again, just different type of programming and knowing your customer base and supporting them, but obviously big difference from a atypical military base. So, all right. What you interesting journey all over the place. What is in your career, and you've got a long career ahead of you, I'm sure. What's your proudest moment so far within MWR, or even what you're doing with currently with DLA? What's your
Um,
proudest moment?
that's a great question. I think if I could span that question to my whole career, that takes me back to Fort Carson, where Colorado, the Army, where I was the special event coordinator. At that time, our country was celebrating or recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. And I was selected to represent our installation and being a part of that commemoration movement. And that included putting together a welcome home ceremony for the Vietnam vets in our area. We brought in the traveling wall. Um, we just did a whole bunch of different events to recognize them and honor them. And even if the event wasn't about them, we always had an element, maybe a VIP section for them. With that, I got to know and work with this really wonderful group of guys. They were helicopter pilots, Huey helicopter pilots in Vietnam. One of them had somehow acquired the actual helicopter that he flew in Vietnam, and he put it on a trailer and he would bring it around to different events. He and a crew of 3 other guys, and I got to know them extremely well and had just this really beautiful, wonderful relationship with them. But being able to be a part of that and watch these vets come in, face something they haven't faced, actually have someone say thank you to them, appreciate them, because the stories that they tell of when they came home from the war are just sickening of how they were treated. And so to be able to help provide that kind of like a healing element for them was just incredibly special. And I think that's something I will always be proud of.
Yeah, one, it seems like it went well beyond your job. You've created relationships, and yeah, the Vietnam veteran is near and dear to my heart. I was still young when they were coming back, and there was a stigma about a Vietnam vet, and for anybody that you know, you know I will say 9/11 on that have come back and how we treat veterans. And there's we can always do better, but it's night and day to what the Vietnam vets came back. A lot of things: the war, the conflict, the personal opinions, the geopolitical issues going on. But yeah, they needed to be recognized, and there were some great celebrations happening across the country, and that's awesome. You were part of it, and obviously touched you in a way that's awesome. And I sometimes like to ask people, we're all recreators at heart. We all kind of started doing this stuff, taking care of people. What do you like to do for fun? What's your right besides going and cheering on and keeping your significant other happy with Ohio State football? But uh, what do you like to do for fun? What do you do for recreation?
I mean, I will say I jumped on the bandwagon with the pickleball. So I love pickleball. I do have to say, when I worked in Guam years and years ago, so like 20 years ago, um, I played pickleball there because they do have a lot of um, Guam is kind of like Hawaii for the Asian countries that are closer to it. So they'll go there for vacation and they have a lot of paddle sports available. And I played it in Guam. And then once I left Guam, I never saw it again and was so upset because I'm like, I love this sport and I just can't find a place to play it. And now it's come back in full force. And so I'm
Tennis,
very into
tennis,
pickleball.
tennis meets ping pong, and no, it's a great sport. It's active, fun, and surprisingly competitive. There are some crazy people out there that are wildly competitive, even going out to the park and just playing for fun.
Yeah.
But that's another episode as well. So. Um, What's I guess I want to wrap it up with this. You have a good background on MWR and what it is across the services. Obviously, you're tied to DLA right now, but where do you see Armed Forces Recreation or MWR 3 to 5 years from now? What's going to change? What's different? What are we doing now that maybe we're not going to do then, or maybe something that's over the horizon that we don't even know about? What do you think?
Well, I think the programs that we've always depended on for running revenue generation to support the overall MWR program, I just don't. They're just not performing the same way they used to. They're just not as popular. So I think that those are kind of our Cat C programs. I think there's a lot more emphasis being placed on Cat Bs to step up and generate that revenue. I think a lot of our emphasis should be put on more out. We're seeing a lot more outdoor activities. So people are buying RVs. They need places to store their RVs. They want places to camp and destinations to go to with them. So we're seeing a huge increase in revenue in those areas. And I think it's only going to get bigger. So I know the Army is investing a lot in RV campgrounds. We at DLA rely heavily upon RV storage lots for that revenue as well. And I think it's just going to kind of continue to shift in that direction. We're going to have to put a lot of emphasis on our programs like auto skills or arts and crafts to continue to evolve and come up with new ways of generating revenue through new programs or staying abreast with what's popular at the moment. I think, I don't. We kind of have this culture where everyone is sort of shifting back to maybe growing their own food or hunting. And I think that will be a really awesome opportunity to bring more life back into programs like our shooting ranges that we have across the Army. By sort of tapping into that, offering more skill-based things such as fishing and hunting, how to go hunting and take them out on actual hunting excursions and teach them how to break down a deer and provide the facilities in which they can do that, and how do you clean a fish and those sort of things that I think people are really hearing a lot about, whether through podcast or other means. And I think that's going to be like a major interest and potentially a kind of a turn away from all those video games and AI type activities, VR, whatever it is. I think we're going to kind of pull back from that in the next, 5 or so years.
Yeah, yeah. Technology can help us be better for our customers, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the end all in terms of the recreational experience. I love the way you kind of connect the dots, these experiences that people are more than willing to pay for as well. It's not like we need to underwrite a hunting course or whatever the experience is. Hey, we're going to bring people in and teach them how to make whatever. If it's a cool experience and it's done well, people will pay to do it. And I think we need to get away from the mindset, even across on the military bases, that nobody has money for anything and everything's got to be free when we get into that, especially in the Cat B world. There's a balance. And sometimes I think we've hurt ourselves in some cases where we've made things free, which is good. We can afford to do it in one year, but then you have a challenging year and then you can't do it, and then you've built this expectation that it's always free. So again, another episode for another podcast. And thank you so much for the time today. It was great to catch up. I know we'll continue to talk offline. Thank you for what you do. Um, Great career, and I'm sure you're going to do great things going on. That's my prediction. If I got a tote board of various people in the profession, and I see you going to great places in the future. So again, thank you for your time today. So that's it for On the Front Line. Thanks again to Ann Connor and her amazing story and journey in our profession. Remember, AFRN social media sites, and of course, their monthly meeting the second Wednesday coming up in April. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, for another great episode. So, on behalf of all of us at DPRS Media and On the Front Line, the Military Rec Show, I am John Prue, and we are out here.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.